Hello. Sorry I'm a little late. Computer problems. Had to do some update or something. Don't worry, my new computer will be here soon. Also, send me money so I can afford that new computer so my wife doesn't kill me. Now, I'll talk about that later. Thank you to those of you who donated. My friend Ford Nation donated. I had some other great people. I'm trying to get a comprehensive list together, but if I haven't thanked you, if you've donated lemons or something, thank you so much. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. The hardest working content creator on the web, working 80, 90 hours a week, plus doing live streams 3, 4 nights a week, putting out videos. You got it. What's up, Modus? Yeah, about Above Top Secret. So I'll talk about that real quick. So I'm a member of this website, AboveTopSecret.com. I recommend you check it out. It's great. It's a conspiracy theory forum, but it's kind of a lot of politics talk that goes on there now. My name's Grambler on that site. You can check it out. Unfortunately, it looks like the site might not be around much longer, but maybe if you go check it out, some more membership might be able to help it survive. But it's a great place where you can talk to people on the left and right. And I think the moderators and the owners do a good job of letting us all have kind of our say in things. And I've met some great people on the left and the right there that have really helped enhance the beliefs I have about things politically. And there's other stuff you can check out there. So that's what my last thread was up. What's up, GeoBlocks on Twitch? Thanks for watching. So yeah, that's what my last thread's about. If you don't know what Above Top Secret is, check it out. You might say, what's this post about? But that was it. The other 2-minute video I did today is more of what I want to talk about. So I got 2 things to talk about the mob today. And the first is kind of this idea that I haven't heard many people talk about. So we had Trump give this speech in Tulsa, and I have to be honest with you, I've been so busy this weekend, I did not get to hear the entirety of Trump's speech. I will say one thing that I don't like that he's saying right off the gate is the idea of criminalizing people for burning the flag. I find burning the flag to be appalling. If I ever see someone do it in front of me, they're going to have to take me down because I wouldn't leave that happen. However, again, this is an issue that people that are corrupt and believe in the by any means necessary philosophy, this is an advantage they have over us. If you're principled, you know that when the other side says things to us, we have to consider it through our principles. And so we're willing to listen to them, and we're willing to say, okay, here's when someone on my side did something wrong, or here's where one of my beliefs are challenged by some of my principles. They don't do that. They could be hypocrites as much as they want. They'll say believe all women until a woman accuses someone on their side, and then they say, oh, no, we don't believe that woman. So they're unencumbered by having to stand by their principles. So I didn't like Trump saying this because I do believe, sadly, that is infringing on free speech, the idea of burning the flag. So I'm against that. I will be against Trump trying to pass some sort of legislation that jails people for burning the flag. As heinous as I think it is, I'm against that. So Black Lives Matter. Do you care? What are you trying to do to make a difference? Thank you, Akil Cook on Periscope. Black lives do matter. Absolutely. All lives matter. What I'm trying to do and make a difference is to show that the political agenda behind Black Lives Matter is a fascist Marxist agenda that the globalists support, and that the policies that they want to institute, such as getting rid of capitalism, abolishing the police, ending prisons, will make things worse for every American, including for the black community. And you're about to see that, because once these police start pulling back, you're seeing record number of shootings in Minneapolis, New York City. Chicago had their deadliest weekend in 60 years, I believe. That's all happening in black communities in the inner city. So just because an organization calls themselves Black Lives Matter doesn't mean the prescriptions they're offering are best for black lives or for any lives. That's my disagreement. Of course I think Black Lives Matter. I think that it's appalling, and I've talked about in my channel for years how it's a disgrace for both parties that we've left some of these inner cities become war zones. I just happen to have a different way of going about solving it. I think the way we solve it is to stop encouraging victimhood mentality, to encourage the nuclear family and the importance of it, something that Black Lives Matter is directly opposed to. I think that that's where we're seeing most of these problems come from. I think that if we stop focusing on race, that we'll be able to go achieve more as a country and more cohesiveness that will benefit everyone. But instead, we've spent 70 years with the war on poverty, encouraging single parenthood in the black community, encouraging a victimhood mindset that discourages things like education, encouraging a culture that encourages things like being antagonistic towards the police. We've had Republicans that refuse to even go into the inner city and talk to people, and Democrats that pretend to care about the inner city, but in reality, they just use them as a pawn every 4 years. And those groups are all laughing, including corporations that could care less about the inner city black communities. But as long as they say Black Lives Matter, then who cares? They can continue to screw over all working Americans. That's what this is about. It's about causing racial division. It's about dividing us as people so that we don't see the man behind the curtain and the truth, which is that the establishment, including the top levels of both parties, don't care about us. The people like Bill Gates and the, lobbyists that run this country, they don't care about us. The intel community doesn't care about us. They're going to be corrupt. They're getting rich off the backs of working Americans of all colors. And they know if people of all colors would come together and see how corrupt the establishment is, they would no longer be able to wield power. And so they encourage things like racial division to make sure that doesn't occur. That's what I'm doing. Trying to educate people as to that, to point out. That's what I'm trying to do. So the video I made earlier today that I think is very telling is, don't you think it's interesting that we had apparently tens of thousands of people get on TikTok to try to subvert Trump's rally, or personally show up to the rally to scream at Trump supporters, or to block entrances so that Trump supporters couldn't get in? All of that occurred. Yet when Joe Biden has a rally, 20 people show up. Do you find that interesting? That is the identity. This is what a party of no ideas is. They don't have an identity. Their identity is just Trump bad. Everyone's racist that doesn't agree with us. That's their identity. They can't defend the policy prescriptions that the people running the party are suggesting, which is the Black Lives Matter movement. Go ahead and read what Black Lives Matter agenda is. Abolishing the police, abolishing prisons, segregated hospitals, reparations, redistribution of land and farming communities to people based on race. I mean, it's almost indistinguishable from things that we saw being said during the Jim Crow movement. The only difference is, it's not that they don't like Jim Crow. See, we could argue about injustices that have occurred in America, and certainly there are many. But the idea that was outlined by the Founding Fathers of all people being created equal, and that idea that we've all been reaching for but will never achieve, that we should judge people as individuals and not based on skin color and things like that. Sadly, as humans, we're flawed and we'll always do that to some extent, but we should always be striving closer for it. That's not what the people leading Black Lives Matter. And when I say people leading, it's not like someone stood up and said, I declare myself a leader. There are those people. But what that movement's about, this is something that's been going on for years. It's this sort of Marxist-fascist mentality. It's cultural Marxism. It's indoctrinated in the philosophy of postmodernism that doesn't believe that there's truth. They believe all relations are power struggles. And they don't believe that we should treat each other as equals. They're perfectly fine to return to a period of Jim Crow. Except they want to be the ones in charge. And the fact that they can't endorse Joe Biden, they don't care about Joe Biden. They don't like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's just an empty suit. That's what the Democrats are offering. I still, to this day, think they'll replace Joe Biden. They don't care. This is the entire election. Donald Trump and his supporters are Nazi racist. That's it. That's driving what the Democratic Party is. It doesn't matter who the person is that's running against Trump. All that matters is they're not a racist Nazi. Even if they are racist, which Joe Biden has said some things that make you scratch your head. You're not black unless you vote for him? That's what's happening. But they'll spend more time. And this is how you know, if you question, here's something you can be sure of in history. I'm not going to say I'm right about everything. I can be wrong about things. And maybe some of the things I believe politically are wrong. But here's what I know. Show me a time in history when you had two groups that were against each other, and the group that was pro-censorship was in the right. Can anyone give me an example? Right now we have one side, the people on my side, the people that care about the average American and the average person, regardless of their skin color. We say, I'm debating people on the left any chance I get. I'm encouraging people that disagree with me to come on my show. I even say when people I disagree with make good points. I'm willing to hear everyone. I don't want anyone censored. I've even defended people on the left over and over. I defended Ralph Northam. I defended Trudeau. I defended Kathy Griffin. I defended Al Franken. I defended Jimmy Kimmel. I don't want to see people lose their lives over comedy or bad jokes that they've made in the past or things like that. I've defended all of those people. I've defended people that I think are heinous and hate this country and their right to speak and to be heard. I've never once suggested going to some other rally of a political party that I don't like and stopping people from hearing what they're saying. I've condemned anyone on the right that says we shouldn't discuss things with people on the left. I talk about my show all the time, and this is true, that I have so many friends on the left, and I want people to listen to me even if they disagree. And there's many, many other people like me that agree with that. Compare that to the globalists. Compare that to the institutions we see now. Compare that to Black Lives Matter. Doxing you, trying to get you fired, trying to censor you for saying anything that they might disagree with, trying to keep people off campuses that disagree with their sentiments, trying to block people from attending rallies to people they disagree with, using physical violence or intimidation to stop people from hearing ideas they don't want, stopping people like Caitlin Bennett from being able to speak on campus, or Milo, or Ben Shapiro, or Charles Murray. Getting rid of books, getting rid of statues, getting rid of movies that they don't like, that they think have messages they're against. What side do you think's right? What side do you think ultimately will look back in history? And look, I know that the winners choose history, and right now their side's winning. But I'm telling you right now, that's the side that knows they're losing the argument. Now, they don't care because they don't believe in facts. That's what postmodernism's about. Again, if you don't think that they're engaged in postmodernism, go back to the Kavanaugh hearings. Listen to Cory Booker and Kamala Harris over and over say, the truth doesn't matter. What matters is her truth, referring to Christine Blasey Ford. So it doesn't matter if she was actually sexually assaulted. If she thinks she was, then she was. The actual truth doesn't matter. And once you get rid of facts, there is no room for discussion. And when there's no room for discussion, every time what fills the gap eventually is violence. And that's what they're pushing for. So ask yourself, if they're morally right, they're not just more intelligent than us, they claim, than people like me, but they're also morally superior. Then why must they show up and make sure that people don't hear Trump? If they're right that Trump's such a childish, racist buffoon, then let people hear him speak. Ultimately, they'll come to that conclusion, right? But instead, they fear him. They fear allowing people to go talk to him. And look, I'm no Trump sycophant. I criticize the man all the time. I criticize his response to COVID, which I still think was horrendous, and he let us down when we needed him most then. I think that he's very ham-fisted, and the way he approaches a lot of things isn't always the best way, but at least he's a man trying to defend the country. That's more than you could say about 99% of the other elected Republicans. So what is it about that? Here's a man that what the power that Black Lives Matter has and the mob has is people are afraid of it, and they capitulate, and they say, please forgive me. But the apology's never enough. And so what they hate more than anything, someone that's like, I'm not going to apologize. That's what Trump is. And that's his greatest strength. And that's a large part of the reason why he won in 2016. Now again, is this saying I think he did everything perfectly? No. But that's one of his greatest assets. And that's something that I try to have. I'm not going to bow down to this mob. I'm not. And what I'm telling you is, the people that want people that say, you can't say X, you can't discuss X, that's because they know they'll lose the argument. So they have to silence you. They have to shame you. They have to dox you. They have to cancel you. They have to make sure that your opinion's not allowed in polite society. And again, I've said this over and over. The revolution that they're engaged in is the first revolution that I could think of in history that is the elites revolting against the common man. That's what Black Lives Matter is. Again, I'll say this again. Let me make it very clear. Not only do I believe Black Lives Matter, I believe that black people or any group has the right to come together to advocate for their group. I do the same. Not for white people, because I think focusing on race is a mistake. But I do it. If you look at one of the reasons I did my channel, some of my first videos, I talk about, I feel that blue-collar workers in places like rural United States, we don't have a voice anymore. And I feel the same about workers in the city and things like that. But this is the community I came from, kind of rural Pennsylvania. And so I wanted to try to help be a voice and help people that don't necessarily have the time to watch the news or to have an understanding of this stuff just because I've been lucky to have the time to do it, to kind of explain it in a way that makes sense to them. So you could look at me and say, well, you've arbitrarily decided to advocate for a group based on things in your livelihood, a group that you associate with. Fair enough. I won't disagree. So I don't begrudge anyone for saying I want to advocate based on my skin color. That's fair. I think it's a mistake. I think it's being used by the elites to drive a wedge. But fair enough. That's fine. I don't think you're an immoral person at all for doing that. But what I would say to people, and I think a lot of people in the Black Lives Matter movement and that endorse it are great people. I just don't think they understand that this is more than just the statement Black Lives Matter. It's a political cult. And they're advocating the end of the United States. And it will be disastrous for your black community and for the United States as a whole. And it won't be this anarchist utopia where we all share in power. The elites are going to get even more power through this. And so what I say to you is, if you're one of those people and you're watching, do you think it's a coincidence that all of these corporations, all of these leaders that have screwed over the black community and working Americans of all colors for so many years, do you think it's a coincidence that they believe in your message? Don't you think it's odd that Jeff Bezos and Amazon totally agrees with the Black Lives Matter message? Don't you think it's odd that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer totally agree with that message? You don't think that's odd? All these multinational corporations, places like Chase Bank, who's gotten in trouble for predatory lending to the African American community, all of a sudden they're on board with Black Lives Matter. You don't think that's strange? And if you think it's strange, please, I encourage you, just look a little beyond the lip service of saying Black Lives Matter and ask yourselves, are these people that are saying Black Lives Matter, are they doing anything to help inner city blacks or working class people of any color? I don't think so. I think they're misleading you. Now, you might disagree with me. You might say, oh, Rob, I think your idea is terrible. The idea that we should try to not focus on race and encourage the nuclear family and things like that. I think that's crap. I obviously disagree with you. But please believe me when I'm not saying I don't care about the black community. I absolutely do. And I'm just letting you know you're making a huge mistake. The very people that you've allied yourself with hate you. They're exploiting you. They're using you as pawns. They're sitting in corporate offices right now smoking cigars, laughing at how stupid you are. Because you think they actually care about your community just because they put a slogan up on their website that says Black Lives Matter. And they don't. They don't care about you at all. And once you achieve your goals that happen to be right in line with their globalist agenda, where they want to make us a neo-feudal society where we're all reliant on a government that they control, once you help them achieve that goal, you'll see how little they matter to you. For example, they don't care that the message of ending the police, the very first people that will face the brunt of that are inner city communities, predominantly black communities. We already see homicides. Already we can see they're skyrocketing in these communities. Black business owners will be affected. Black children will be harmed, indoctrinated into gangs, or killed. That's what we'll see. And so for a bunch of white elite liberal people that will never set foot in these inner city communities, they cheer their destruction. They say, yes, riot. Yes, remove the police. It's a great idea. Meanwhile, they're more than happy to have private security at their homes. They'd never want the rioting to occur there. But they pat themselves on the back about how moral they are while your communities burn. So I just think that's interesting. I haven't heard people talk about that. The mob, right? The people that are going to vote Democrat, they barely mention Joe Biden. They have no enthusiasm for Biden. They spend no time saying, here's why Biden's a great candidate. That's what you have with Trump. Like him or hate him, there are a bunch of people that want to see Trump. There are a bunch of people that really support Trump. You can't say that about the Democrats, about Joe Biden. It reminds me of, I was a Pittsburgh sports fan, and one year I went to see, there was a year way, way back in the day where the Steelers and the Patriots were at the top of the AFC Championship. So it's like, it's 12 games into the season, and if one of them lost a game, the other was going to get the top seed. So I was like, oh, I hope the Patriots lose. I happened to be in Cleveland for work, and the Patriots were playing the Browns. So I was like, hey, I'll go watch the Browns and cheer for the Browns. Hopefully they'll beat the Patriots. It'll help the Steelers out. And I was shocked. When you walk into a sporting event like that, there's usually a bunch of people selling t-shirts and stuff outside any venue you're at. And most of the time, like, I've been dozens of games in Pittsburgh, Pirates, Penguins, and Steelers. It's kind of like bootleg shirts, almost like people printed themselves. That'll, sometimes they're more childish than the official merchandise. So it'll just be like, oh, Pittsburgh Steelers, we'll kick your we'll kick your ass on grass or ice, things like that. I was shocked that in Cleveland, the majority of the shirts weren't brown shirts. They weren't like, we support the Cleveland Browns. They were, we hate the Steelers. And I was like, their entire identity, because their team loses so much, is not, hey, we support the Browns. It's, we just hate that other team. That's what the Democratic Party right now is. No one can defend this. No one can defend their insane. Even the radicals that want to end the police and things like that, they can't defend Joe Biden. The moderate Democrat, they can't defend Joe Biden. The moderate Democrat can't defend these radical proposals. So the only thing unifying them is, well, Trump's a Nazi. And so that's their identity. All of their enthusiasm is, we hate Trump. Don't be mistaken. That could still be an effective way to win an election. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, their party, they don't stand behind their ideas. They don't have cohesive ideas. What's running that party right now is hatred of Trump, racial division, and basically wanting to see the country burn. Not every Democrat wants that, but that's what's running that party. That's what we see. Now, as far as this TikTok business, I know I said in my video, right, the irony of, wasn't there foreign election interference with Russian trolls using Pokemon Go and Facebook? And remember when Cambridge Analytica worked with Republicans? They're a British company and they worked with Republicans to use Facebook data. Oh, we had to have meetings on Capitol Hill about, is that foreign election interference? Yet, Ocasio-Cortez admitting, hey, I'm cheering a bunch of people for working with a Chinese-owned company, TikTok, to subvert a political rally in the middle of an election season. That's totally legit. Now, let me clarify what my stance on this is. I do not think that's foreign election interference that's worth discussing. I don't think it's a big deal in that level. In fact, that's because I didn't think that the Russian trolls were a big deal at all. I thought it was laughable. So no, I ultimately, being consistent, don't want to see AOC investigated or these people investigated for possibly working with a Chinese firm to subvert our election. However, that's what they would say. If Trump supporters had used TikTok, I guarantee AOC and Schumer and Pelosi would say, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to have investigations. It's Trump working with China? So that's all I'm pointing out with that. And if you're honest, because there was unlimited, the tickets were free and there were seemingly an unlimited that could have been given out, I don't understand why, if 1 million people would have used TikTok to get tickets, why that would have caused Trump supporters to not be able to get in. Now, had they showed up, used the tickets to get in, and then not went in and sat down, and so to the ticket takers, it looked like, well, we got 30,000 people, we're at max capacity, but then they just didn't sit down. Then maybe, but I didn't hear reports of that. The greater thing, and I haven't been able to get the numbers for this, was the fact that correct me if I'm wrong, but the reports I read said that Black Lives Matter protesters actually barred several of the entrances. They got in front of the entrances, they used violence and intimidation to stop Trump supporters that had legitimate tickets from getting into the rally. That's ridiculous. And again, all you have to do is use the shoe on the other foot test. Picture just for 1 second that Joe Biden's going to have a rally in Iowa, And a bunch of Trump supporters show up and they just block the venue and say, you can't get in. Do you think for 5 seconds that whoever was in charge of the police wouldn't say, round them up now? Do you think that CNN would say, well, hey, they're just participating in free speech? Oh, by the way, look at how many few people were at Biden's rally because a bunch of Trump supporters kept them out. Do you think that would be the message from the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC? Or would they say this proves that racist Trump supporters were using political violence and intimidation to influence an election? And that we can't stand by this. I've said this for years. Show me I'm not going to be naive and tell you that no Trump supporters ever not engaged in political violence. Of course that's happened. And I despise the political violence, no matter where it comes from. And I will point out if I see a Trump supporter engaged in political violence. But could someone please show me, even from the 2016 election or from the 2020, can anyone show me one example where there was a left-wing rally where right-wingers showed up to prevent people from getting into that rally or showed up and started confrontations? Almost every confrontation you saw, even when it was a Trump supporter fighting someone, was because you had left-wing people come to right-wing rallies or Trump rallies and start stuff. That doesn't mean that every left-wing person that came was engaged in violence. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, can someone show me the opposite of that? Can someone show me thousands of Trump supporters showing up to a Hillary or a Biden rally and trying to prevent people from getting in or harassing people? Anyone? Is there one example? That's, and no one talks about this. This isn't discussed in the media. It's just, oh, look, there's a violent Trump supporter. Again, that's fine. If you show a Trump supporter being violent, so be it. But let's not act like both things are occurring in the same way. You don't see roving gangs of Trump supporters showing up to left-wing causes and harassing people. So how many people were kept out of the rally because they were literally there, but they couldn't get in because of these protesters? Or how many people didn't want to show up because they were afraid that their picture could be taken and they would have lost their job? Or how many people didn't show up because they are afraid lunatics that have been burning cities down across the country would use violence against them if they showed up? The power of the mob, as I said this about Antifa for 3 years. I've been telling you this. The power of Antifa isn't just the rioting and the violence and things like that. That stuff's bad, don't get me wrong. But the real power comes in the form that they are backed up by the institutions. That's the power. See, the KKK, what made them, when they had power, the reason that they had power was there were a bunch of people in high political office or in institutional offices that agreed with them. Now it's totally the opposite. Show me one major institution in this country that isn't supporting Black Lives Matter. One. Even the police. Now, here's the irony, and I'm the only person I've heard say this in the country. The only one. But here's the irony, and I've talked to cops that agreed with me about this, okay? The same people that are defending the police and saying it's terrible, how they're being maligned as systemically racist, or, we don't need them. We have so many people on the right that are saying that's absurd. Of course we need the police. Of course most police are good. It's not a problem of systemic racism, etc., etc. It's a myth that cops are out there hunting and killing unarmed black men for racist reasons. At least at a large scale. The irony is, eventually, when the right-wingers start to defend themselves, or God forbid, and I really don't want this, they start acting like these left-wing rioters, the same police that have stood back and watched these left-wing people engage in violence almost with impunity will crack down on the right so hard it'll make your head spin. So the very people defending the police, if they engage in actions even close to what we see the left doing right now, the police will crack down on them with impunity. Now, it's not because the individual police officer is terrible. It's because the people running the police, the mayors, the chiefs, in most of these major cities, are leftists. Or if they're not leftists, they at least want to appear conciliatory to the left so that they don't get taken out by the mob. You see it in the UK. Go watch the footage of last week. People spray painting, trying to do horrible things to the statue of, oh goodness, why can't I think of his name? Churchill. And then there's one guy that goes to the statue and tries to defend it. The police cuff him right out of the way. Yep, that's right. Go look at, I believe it's, where was it? Where did I see this? Poland? Scotland? Black Lives Matter protested for 2 weeks. No one got arrested. Then all of a sudden, really? Notorious Verga. Is that real? Wow. Thank you so much. Notorious Verga on Twitch just donated $300. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's a lot of money. So, if that was a typo, if you only meant to type 30 or something, please let me know and I'll send it back. But yeah, I really appreciate it. But that's the truth. They'll crack down. So the Black Lives Matter people were protesting. They didn't do anything for 2 weeks. When people finally got enough of them destroying all of this stuff and went out and tried to defend their property or defend statues or defend their communities, the police cracked down on those. So, I mean, it's very troubling. That's what we see occurring, and that's the irony of what's going to happen. So, I mean, it's very troubling. Quiet there, fatso. Me, I mean. Someone, are you guys sure about this? I don't know if that means you guys actually donate. If someone claims they donated $1,000, does anyone understand Twitch? How do I check if that's true? If you guys are just joking around, that's okay. That's funny too. But Ray Bumu or Notorious Virga, I don't even know how to look at the donations on Twitch. But thank you guys. I'll get to that later. If you've donated that much, that's incredibly generous. Incredibly. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad people, even those that aren't donating, I'm incredibly thankful that people support me just by listening to me. So, but I'll keep the show going. No one wants to hear me just talk finances. That's what we end up seeing, right? That's the real irony in this. And again, it's not that the officer on the street is, they're more left-wing. I'm sure there are left-wing officers. There's right-wing officers. But I think most of the officers understand that this is garbage, that they're getting a raw deal right now. And not just in the United States, world over. Particularly in the Western world. Yeah, okay. Now I'm not believing this because I don't believe that someone just donated $10,000. So. But thank you for the joke. Funny nonetheless. But if you did donate $10,000, thanks. Anyways, that's what we end up seeing. So, I wanted to talk about the mob a little and what it means. So, one of the things that I've been recommending is we don't have any leadership on the right. And we're probably not going to get any. You have Trump, but here's the thing. Trump can't do everything himself. Who's an ally in the Republican Party, in Trump's own party, that's helping him stand up and defend this country? Do you see anyone? There really isn't anyone that I see, right? You got Matt Gaetz, you got a handful of people, but no one's really taking a position where they're being brave and saying, this is a great country. It's, in my opinion, the greatest country that's ever existed. Although there are things we could focus on in the past that this country's fallen short of, the principles of the Founding Fathers are exactly what we should continue to be striving for right now, and that's what made our country so great. Like, you don't see people saying that. And there aren't people defending the country, and we're just letting people destroy our country and its institutions left and right. And we're allowing the average individual person that cares about this country, the leadership we've elected, they're not defending us whatsoever. We're left out here by ourselves. And the lesson learned is just like the lesson of the Second Amendment. Protect yourself. Don't look for someone to be a leader for you. You should be the change you want to see. Regardless if you're on the left or right, the most important thing you could do in your life is have personal responsibility. That's what makes this country great. It's not just personal liberty, it's also personal responsibility. Thank you, Freebird. I would happily take Walmart's $400 million and I would put it to a good use to making this country great and helping out working class people and poor people of all colors. I would love to do that, but thank you. That's what we end up seeing. That we need personal responsibility more than ever. What you see with this mob, have you noticed it even with the socialists like Bernie over and over again? They prescribe this stuff for you that they themselves are unwilling to engage in. And so I was thinking about this, talking to my friend Carlos earlier tonight on the phone, and I was thinking about how I wanted to talk about this tonight. And the idea of what's going on with cancel culture and the mob. So the first thing that came to mind is you had all these people that push cancel culture, and so many of us knew that the irony is that cancel culture will eventually come for everyone. All you need to do is read a fantastic book, The Tale of Two Cities, right? And it's about The French Revolution, basically. So that's a great fictional book about a real event that could give you an idea of this. Or you could just study the French Revolution. Now, you could argue that the people in France had the right to revolt. It was a crappy system. There was a lot of bad stuff happening with the oligarchy that ruled France. But the problem was, once you encouraged this mob mentality, it ate the very people that originally were part of the mob. There's no stopping it once it gets starting. There needs to be some leadership. And so the irony to me is, you take someone like Ice Cube or Ice-T, that are now speaking for Black Lives Matter, and they're happy to have things like Gone with the Wind canceled or statues ripped down or things like that. Where do you think we're going to be in 30 years if we continue to get more woke? Do you think that people might start to listen to some of the lyrics of these rappers? Of people that are considered icons in the black community? Like Jay-Z, who went to meet Obama several times in the White House. What do you think is going to happen when the future generations read Jay-Z's lyrics? Well, he's going to be canceled. I said before, we will have a time where Martin Luther King's streets and statues are toppled because the word is he was a womanizer. It'll get even crazier than that, though. What if in 100 years from now, society has become woke enough that they think meat is murder? And so they look back at leaders today that they would say, oh, these are great leaders. They're fantastic. They encouraged the Black Lives Matter movement, and they really helped this country get racial justice. But they ate hamburgers. Oh my God, the monsters ate meat? That's murder. We can't celebrate murderers, tear their statue down. What if we get to a point 200 years from now where we start to have cybernetics and AI that are so advanced that we consider them part of society? And all of a sudden we look back at people from 200 years ago that used machines in a slave-like way, like I'm using this computer, and we cancel them. This is why cancel culture is so dumb. Because none of us could know what the prevailing ideas will be in the future. And so to look back at people in the past and say, well, based on our current knowledge of what we think about things like civil rights, we're going to judge people that did things in the past. It will eventually come for you as well. And you have to think of the reason that these things are being canceled. Does anyone truly believe that removing a Confederate statue is going to solve anything? Does anyone really believe that removing a statue of George Washington will solve anything? It's all symbolic. That's what it's about. And so it got me thinking, what are these people really after? And for that, I go to someone I really respect, the great Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson talks about this book that George Orwell wrote, and the book's called The Road to Wigan Pier. Now, let me say something just to start here. I talk to people a lot in my real life, particularly, that say, that'll say things like, oh, Rob, you're so well-read. No, I'm not. I'm woefully underread. I really am. I need to read more, and it's one of the things, in addition to losing weight, which, by the way, I ask people to fat shame me. Rational, you would be a good one to fat shame. I think I've lost like 2 pounds. Not doing the greatest. But I'm going to be a dad. I got to get healthy. The due date's at the beginning of January, so I want to lose some weight and be healthier by then. So feel free to fat shame me all you want. I need to be losing weight. So anyways, one of the things I need to do is read more. So I'm taking other people I listen to's word for a lot of this. But Jordan Peterson talks about this Orwell book called The Road to Wigan Pier. Now, the way books used to come out back in the day, they called them serials, which is instead of just putting a book out all at once like we do now, you would release a chapter in like a local journal or something once a month. And so Orwell got commissioned from the socialists in the UK to go to this community that was a mining community at Wigan Pier. And when he got there, the first half of his book is writing about the incredibly brutal conditions that these miners lived in. For example, when they got in the mine, it would take a mile to basically walk to where they would start mining. And you had to be hunched over the whole time. So everyone had these horrible backs because they spent their whole 12 hours a day hunched over. And they only had one outhouse for these big, long homes that they went in. And he saw women that had no teeth. And he was like, oh, young women, what happened to your teeth? And they said, because there was no dental care there and they couldn't afford it, that teeth were a nuisance. So as soon as they started bothering them, they'd just rip it out. Just really horrendous stuff that the socialists were all about. So the socialists love this. So the first half of Orwell's book's just about the plight of the worker. But then the second half of the book, Orwell starts to recognize that there's something odd going on that he just can't put his finger on. So he sees the terrible plight of these workers. He empathizes with the workers. And then he goes back to London and he sees all of these kind of aristocratic socialists. But he can't put his finger on there's something wrong. And ultimately, he comes to this conclusion. The socialist, it's not that they care about the working people. It's that they hate anyone who has more than them. And they're using the plight of the working poor as an excuse, as a weapon to go after those that have more than them. This is something I've said about Bernie Sanders. How much money is it immoral to have? Bernie says that billionaires are immoral. Bernie himself is a millionaire. Bernie has 3 houses. He says one of them is a modest lake house, a modest lake camp. That house is worth over $500,000. I will never own a house, even one approaching that. Ever. In my entire life. Most likely. I've made under $50,000 a year basically my entire life. Right now, I'm making slightly over $15 an hour, most I've ever made. I live paycheck to paycheck. I have crippling student loan debt. And I have to listen to a person tell me I'm immoral, but his wealth, his mass wealth, which to me seems like an amount that's almost fictional. You have so much, once you're in the millions, to me, it's like monopoly money to me, to someone like me that's working 80, 90 hours a week. But he has the nerve to say, well, my money's great. The amount of money I have is totally legit. It's those people more than me that are the problem. And that's exactly what Orwell's talking about. It's not that they care about the poor. Ooh, almost spilled my water there. It's that they hate the people that have more than them. Now, remember, what is cultural Marxism? What are we talking about with critical race theory and with the Black Lives Matter movement? They're engaged in what I call cultural Marxism. And cultural Marxism was this. We had all of these academics that believed in Marx in the United States. There was basically 50-50, a big debate. Is it capitalism? Is it Marxism? Which is the best way to go? And then once the horrors of the Soviet Union started to be exposed in books like The Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, it was clear, things like 15 million Ukrainians starving to death. Things like Stalin's execution squads, killing his own people. It was clear that that system was horrible. And so Marxists lost. But then they adapted. It wasn't just the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat anymore. It was, they could take any characteristic about you and make it oppressor versus oppressed. So your race, your gender, your religion, all of this stuff. Hey, what's up, eat it? They could do all of that stuff, right? That idea is then used to cause divisions and power. And what they do is they break you. Again, I tell this story a lot. But the easiest way to say it, I'm Rob Knorr. You can see me right now in here, unless you're listening on my podcast later. So, am I Rob Knorr, a person who is an individual who has all these unique thoughts? No, not to them. I'm white. I'm male. I'm straight. I'm Christian. I'm fat. That's oppressed, right? But those first 4 groups, those are all oppressors. So white's an oppressor, any other skin color is oppressed. Now, I've talked about how stupid this is, and we can go into that later if people want. But it's just ridiculous on so many levels. But that's what they do, and then they encourage this division, and that's how they consolidate power. That's what this sort of cultural Marxist is. What are they really doing, though? So now they're involved in Black Lives Matter. They're involved in cancel culture. They want to bring down the systems of white supremacy, which is capitalism. They want to get rid of the Constitution. They don't want to view people as all equal. They're against that. That's why they're calling for things like segregated hospitals. What is it that they want? Why is it that you see so many people that have allied with them, such as the mayor in Minneapolis there, Fry? Remember? He allied with them. He goes to their big protest. They say, will you admit that acknowledge right now that you'll abolish the police? He says, I can't do that. They shame him out of there. They're going after all sorts of people on the left. And we always told them they would. First, they'll go after the people on the right. And then they'll go after people on the left as well. They'll come for everyone. Just like the French Revolution. Why aren't you safe even if you bow down to the mob? Why is that? If it's just about getting rid of these oppressive groups, then surely if you support them getting rid of those oppressive groups, you're safe. But you're not. If it's just about removing Confederate statues, why are they going after George Washington? If it's just about removing slave owners, why are they going after Gandhi? Why are they going after Theodore Roosevelt, which is going to be pulled down from the Museum of Natural History now? What's going on here? And the reason is like Orwell said. This is the reason. Because the mob isn't about caring for people. The mob is about hatred for anyone that has more than them. Only there's a difference now. The socialists that Orwell was dealing with, they were dealing with Marxism. They were dealing with the idea of wealth. Those who had wealth, the bourgeoisie, and the proletariat, those that were the working stiffs. But cultural Marxism showed us it could be more about just economics and more about than just wealth. It could be about skin color, for example. It could be about gender. The mob's hatred isn't just for people with more wealth than them. It's about people that they perceive as having a better life than them. And that may mean wealth, or it may mean power, or it may mean happiness, or it may mean influence. That's what they want. So let me show you how this works. They go after their group. They don't like Donald Trump. Maybe they'll take him down, maybe not. They don't like Trump supporters. Okay, they go after them. They don't like conservatives. Okay, they go after them. They don't like Christians. Okay, they go after them. They don't like white people. Okay, they go after them. They don't like the police. Okay, they go after them. And on and on. They don't like Christians. Okay, they go after them. But what happens once polite society decides to cancel all of those groups? And it's happening to some extent or another. That's the road we're going down to. But eventually, the mob's not going to say, okay, we did it. We took out all the groups. The outrage will persist because it's not about taking out that specific group. It's about taking out people that have more power than them, more influence than them, more money than them, more happiness than them. And because it's not a stable target that just says we need to take down this group, it's fluid. It's we need to take down those who have more than me. There will always be people that have more than others. More happiness, more influence, more money, more power. That will always exist. Therefore, there will always be a target for the mob. So let's do a hypothetical here for a second. Let's assume that with cultural Marxism, the thing about it is there's an infinite number of ways you could cause division amongst people. Race, gender, sexual preference, body type, intelligence, wealth, religion, geographic location, the place you were born, your age, right? Your physical health, on and on and on. But let's just say, hypothetically, that there was 100 different ways that they could split us like that, okay? And so they take those 100, starting with race and going right down to the bottom of the type of car you drive, right? And if you're on one side of the ledger, you're an oppressor, and you must be taken down. So let's say they win, and they take all those 100 categories, they take the oppressor side of that, and they eliminate them all. Do you think the next day they stop? Of course not. Then what they do is they say, well, wait a minute, what about the people that are on our side? But their oppression is less than my oppression. So I'm black. I'm more oppressed than, say, the person right down here that's overweight. Overweight used to be considered oppressed. But now, we'll say, you are the least of the oppressed, and therefore now the target of the mob. And you know how they accomplish this? This is the crux of it. This is the most important thing to understand. They make the sin, which they will cancel you for, so benign that everybody's done it. And so the sin would be things like this. You have privilege. It's not even privilege that you necessarily had to have acted on. It's not anything that you do. It's literally you were from your birth somehow oppressive. The mere fact you were born a certain way makes you oppressive. Or anyone who's ever told an off-color joke must be canceled. Well, that's 99% of everyone. Sure, you might say, well, but they're just saying that told jokes that affect black people. Today, eventually, once they run out of those people, they'll find people that told jokes about ladies they didn't like. Ever tell a joke about a woman should make you a sandwich? Well, you're canceled. And then after they do blacks and women, maybe the next joke is, did you ever say a joke that could be perceived as anti-LGBT? And then once they go through that list, then it doesn't even have to be jokes. Oh, you asked someone where they were from. That's a microaggression. They look different than you, so they must be from somewhere different. No, I just asked where they were from. Sorry, canceled. The sin is so benign that the mob can cancel anyone at any given time. And you know this is true because we could look and see that it's not applied equally, right? So, for example, I did a video 3 weeks ago, and I'm proud to say I was the first person that did this video, though now you're seeing the Republicans and conservative people, I won't even say Republicans, conservatives kind of take this idea and roll with it. If we're getting rid of Confederate statues, if we're getting rid of Gone with the Wind and symbols in the past that we perceive as racist, why is the Democrat Party still called the Democrat Party? Wasn't that the name of the party that was pro-slavery? Wasn't the symbol of the Democratic Party that of the donkey? The symbol that was around when Democrats were pushing Jim Crow laws? So why don't we get rid of the name Democrat? And why don't we get rid of the symbol of the donkey? But they don't care. Or an even better example. And by the way, if you haven't seen, you go to Twitter and stuff, you have a bunch of people, I think Jason Kelly's his name, that are pushing, well, Elihu Yale, that Yale University's founded from, was a slave owner. So get rid of Yale, right? And I can go a step further, right? It's not just enough for Yale to change their name, because consider this. The administrators and the faculty at Yale, they know that Elihu Yale, right? They know he was a slaveholder. They're smart enough to know his history. Why didn't they change it on their own? Why wait until Black Lives Matter tells them? So that's proof to me, right, that all of those administrators are systemically racist. So we have to get rid of all of them as well, right? Because just because they're only changing, if they change their name, they're only doing it because they were forced to. They didn't do it on their own. So the next time they have a chance, they're clearly white supremacists then. The next time they have the chance to screw over people of color, they will. So we need to get rid of all of the administrators at Yale. The same of Georgetown University, which actually at one point survived by making money off selling slaves. Get rid of them. Rice University, also at one point, didn't want people of color in. So get rid of the names and all of the administrators that have allowed that name to exist for so many years and didn't act until they were forced to. Get rid of them all, right? And that's exactly that's exactly the only way this will change. If you're going to play this woke game and point the mob at other people, then the mob should be directed at you. How about blackface? Trudeau, Ralph Northam, I've defended them. I didn't want them to lose their jobs. But we're going to cancel John Wayne movies or Teddy Roosevelt because of things that occurred decades ago. We're going to tear down George Washington's statue because he was a slave owner, even though it was commonplace at the time. But Ralph Northam, a current governor who wore blackface when he well knew that he shouldn't be wearing blackface, we're okay with that. And you start to see, well, why aren't they applying these rules equally? Because it was never about the rule. The rule is intentionally set up to make everyone guilty. This is what's so heinous about this idea, this original sin that they're pushing. You're all born with sin, and you must all bow to them, or else the mob will eat you. It is a cult and a religion. That's what it is. They're selectively going after the people that they perceive as the biggest threats. And once those people are taken down, then they're going to come for you, Jimmy Fallon. Then they're going to come for you, Jimmy Kimmel, or the people at Yale, or the people at Georgetown. You were more than happy to participate in the mob when it was taking down people that you perceived as people that didn't have the right to be in polite conversation. What's up, Dylan? Thanks for being here. My friend Dylan Burns TV on Twitch. You should check out his channel. He's the one who moderated a debate I did a couple weeks ago. Really great channel, so I recommend checking it out.
That's what this cancel culture is about. That's why you can't say, well, wait a minute, it seems arbitrary what they're canceling. Why wouldn't you cancel, for example, the name of the party? I get the argument that they try to make, which we could debate about, which was that the Democrats and the Republicans switched during the Southern strategy and things like that. Maybe so, but the argument of canceling these things like statues is canceling the symbol of them. For example, why are we taking Aunt Jemima off of syrup? It's not something I particularly care about. If that's what the corporation wants to do, so be it. But you're actually taking off the image of a woman who was a slave that despite that became a millionaire. An accomplishment so great it should be taught in all of our schools. Some of these slaves that were mistreated in heinous ways that I'll never be able to imagine went off to become some of the greatest Americans we have. Some of the greatest stories of entrepreneurship, hard work, the American values, and forgiveness that we've ever seen. And we're canceling them just because the image makes us uncomfortable? Think of the stupidity of this. So then what's the argument? Well, you can't have anyone that's in a certain type of cultural outfit be on an advertisement label because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Okay, so then we can have black people that are wearing a suit and tie, but couldn't I make an argument? Wait a minute. Why can't a black person be in a traditionally black cultural design, clothing-wise, when they're on an advertisement label? We can only accept blacks as advertisement that are wearing traditional European wear? Doesn't that seem problematic? Oh, okay. Well then, yeah. Then we better just not have black people as symbols of advertising. But isn't that in itself racist? It's very troubling, like the ideas behind this. You know? But anyways, why does it seem selectively applied? Because it's not about getting to the truth of it. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm someone, when it comes to these Confederate statues, I would not have a problem if people in communities voted and said, we don't want these statues. I don't want to see them removed because I think they're part of our... I'm not even one of these people that's like, we should leave this statue up so people understand this is how not to act. Like, that's what Condoleezza Rice said. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying history's history. And it exists. And anytime you try to wash away history, only bad things could happen. You know, I in my life have said, like, to people, I don't see the point of the Confederate. Now, let me give you an example. The Confederate flag, kind of somewhere where around I live, makes sense because one of my favorite places to go is Gettysburg. The Confederate flag makes sense there because that's the entire town. It's a monument to the Civil War. So, of course, you know, but whatever. People have their own proclivities. I wouldn't get upset for someone for flying a Black Panther flag. I'd say, whatever. But I get it. I get the people that don't like... it's not a hill I'm dying on. It's like, I get it. But I don't think you could arbitrarily, because you're individually upset, go tear down something. I don't think that's right. If you want to vote it out, then vote it out. Clearly, it seems like there's popular support to get rid of a lot of these statues. So be it. I don't have a problem. But it's selectively being applied. Why is the Democratic Party still allowed to have their name? Symbolically, shouldn't we remove it? Or Yale, or Georgetown. And then when you start to realize is a lot of these people that have pushed for that stuff, eventually they'll find something that matters to them. Oh wait, I'm a Yale alumnus. I don't want the name to change. It wasn't about racism. Heck, as a Yale alumnus, I'm very progressive. I actually fought, I'm saying hypothetically, trust me, I didn't graduate from Yale. But, you know, hey, I'm a progressive Yale alumnus. I fought for minority rights, you know. This is ridiculous. I don't want part of my culture, part of what's important to me is my history removed like that. Well, guess what? That's what happens when you start this removal. You might think, well, it's okay for them to remove this stuff because I disagree with it. So, that's what I see with the mob. That it will never stop until enough people are affected that we stand up and say, enough is enough. And by the way, let me say, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, but as a matter of principle, I think in this vein, this is why Trump is wrong to say that we should jail people for a year that burn the American flag. As heinous as I feel burning the American flag is. But here's why. Because what that is, it says free speech is acceptable unless something that offends me so much occurs, then it should be illegal. But that's the similar mentality, believe it or not, to the pulling down of statues. And the mentality is this. It's acceptable to curtail things I don't like, But once you start curtailing things I like, then I don't accept that. Does that mean if I saw someone burning a flag, I wouldn't step in? Yes, I would step in, even if it meant getting into a confrontation. Hello, Modus, Patriot Dave, Freebird, Phil. Thank you all. Dylan, are you still on here? Whoever's on Twitch, can you tell me how to check donations and things like that? I really don't know. For those of you just joining me, allegedly someone donated $10,000 to me. Actually, $11,000. I don't think that that's likely, but just checking. Because if so, I'll get a real nice computer. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. By the way, Periscope. I can't see how many people are on Periscope, but I appreciate all of you that follow me there as well. If I could give a quick pitch before I go on. Yeah, Modus, you're always here. By the way, Modus, are you a mod? Can you let me know? I think you should be. I think I have the best mods because they barely do anything, and I welcome people even if they're disagreeing with me. That's one of the most important things I think I can have in this channel. The idea of free speech. That's what I'm all about. But, yeah, so that's what I see with this mob. Selective enforcement, saying that everyone's guilty, and then we'll just choose who we want to go after for that guilt. And it won't end well. Even if you think right now, hey, I don't like the Confederate flag. I don't like these Civil War era statues. I want them down. Eventually, they'll come for you. Or I think this person should be canceled for this joke. Or this person should be canceled for this political belief. It will happen. It will come for you. I will buy the first, second, and third rounds if someone donated me $10,000 to me. But I'm not going to stop and check until afterwards because it's not fair to the people doing. Let me say this. I do appreciate everyone who donates money to me and anyone that would consider. I have some. Oh, for crying out loud. Just hit me up. You could donate to me on PayPal or Patreon. I'll put the links up by the end. You could donate to me on Super Chat or if you're on D Live, Lemons. D Live's fantastic if you're not there, by the way, because 100% of your donation goes to the people you're donating to. So. But I do appreciate everyone that donates, but I appreciate all of you that don't as well. I understand, I was talking about this website Above Top Secret that I went to that's kind of probably going to fold. And I don't have money to donate to them. I'm really sorry. I'm going to be a dad for the first time. I'm trying to get better equipment to do more with this show. So I'm working 90 hours a week. So, I get it if people can't donate. No problem whatsoever. So, yeah, I'll kind of see what's going on in the chat. I'll try to go till midnight here. But that's the things I wanted to talk about. And so consider then what you see. What are the goals? So one of the things I think that's ironic is a lot of the people I've seen stepping up against this mob mentality the most effectively are left-wingers, actually. So people that traditionally would consider themselves liberal, like Brett and Eric Weinstein, or Michael Tracy, or Matt Taibbi, or Glenn Greenwald, or Dave Rubin, or Joe Rogan. By the way, just a brief aside, Joe Rogan, there's a person they're coming for. Started off because he was against masks, and then he was perceived as being too friendly because he talked to people on the right. And so now they're going back to, pretty off-color jokes that he either told or laughed about in the past, and they're trying to cancel him now. Thank you for that. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Anyone from the Daughters of the Confederacy ever spoke up about all this? I don't know. Is that an organization? I'm unaware of them. Bulimic Lives Matter, says Rational. Agreed. You can tell I suffered from bulimia myself. But, yeah, so, let me get another water here. Yeah, Frank, you're right. Joey Diaz. For those of you who don't know, Joey Diaz, who's a comedian, who's a friend of Joe Rogan's, he made a joke where he basically said when he's running comedy shows, he won't leave women on stage unless they perform sexually on him. And Joe Rogan laughs. Rogan also told a joke where he claimed that they were going to see the movie Planet of the Apes, and then they walked into the comedy club, and it was Planet of the Apes in there, implying that it was a lot of black people in there. Look, I don't care. I don't care at all. Is that a bad joke? Sure. I mean, one of my favorite comedians is Bill Hicks. You should hear what he said. I just don't care. It's a joke. I don't care. We need to be able to laugh at each other more. I really don't care. It's not something I would say. But I've heard offensive... For example, when Samantha Bee called Ivanka Trump a feckless C-word, I defended that. That's not the way I talk personally, but I defend it. So the idea they're coming for Joe Rogan, look, if they're coming for him, they're going to come for people next. Tim Pool talks about this, where he thinks that what they're doing, all these social media platforms, the reason they're allowing people like Tim Pool up there is they understand that they can't censor everyone except the extreme left. So what you do is you completely get rid of the right, and then you allow people that are sort of center left to stay. That way, that becomes the new right. Oh, so we could either be extremist left-wingers or we could be center left-wingers. That's our two options now. So, I don't know. But yeah, the world has gone and said. Insane. Yeah, we do need comedy the most now. I agree 100%. So, we see this cancel culture that's coming. I just think it's really crazy. I just trying to imagine Trump supporters blocking Biden supporters from getting into a Biden show. I mean, first off, it would be strange because what would you have? 10 people or something to a Biden event? Trump supporters like, hey, we're not going to let you into this Biden event. And the supporters of Biden would probably be like, I was just here anyways. It wasn't a big deal. Right, Frank. Tim Pool's considered right-wing to the left standards at this point. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking about today with the mom. Now, I admit, I had a really busy weekend with Father's Day. First off, let me say, and I should have started the show with this, happy Father's Day to everyone out there who's a father, and happy Father's Day even to everyone, if you're not a father yourself, that has played a part in a young person's life, whether you be male or female, or that has a father that you really respect and meant a lot to you. So happy Father's Day to all of you. I'm lucky. My dad is fantastic. The privilege I have, people talk about privilege all the time. The biggest privilege I have was having two parents that really cared about me. They weren't particularly wealthy or anything like that. They weren't college educated. In fact, my dad never graduated high school. But they were great. And the more I learn about, they were young when they had me. They were 20, 21. And the sacrifices they made to give me a great livelihood, I can never repay them. They're fantastic. I'm also lucky enough to marry into a family where I have a great father-in-law and a great stepfather-in-law. So I'm really lucky. I have 3 father figures in my life that are fantastic. And a bunch of other older people that are just great family members that have really influenced my life. So I'm really lucky to have that. So yeah, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Oh, Frank, you're from ATS, Above Top Secret. Yeah. Sad to see it going. Sorry to see you got banned. I know a lot of people have been banned from there. But so yeah, I guess I got some more time. I'll talk about the concept of privilege. So this is something that I've talked about before. But this is the irony of talking about privilege. The truth is, when we go back to this cultural Marxism thing, that it's dumb to ever assume that someone is privileged or not based on these characteristics. So you're white, you must be privileged. You're man, you must be privileged. You're Christian, you must be privileged. It's dumb because what we do is we then take people as a group, which is a mistake. We should look at people as individuals. Because here's the irony. What these identity politics people are eventually going to realize, think of it this way. Like, let's just go through a list. Let's stand up and say, I'm a woman, you're a man, therefore I'm oppressed and you're oppressing me, so I'm more oppressed than you. But then someone stands up and says, yes, but I'm a woman of color, so I'm more oppressed than you, white woman, so I'm more oppressed, so, And then someone stands up and says, yes, but I'm a Muslim woman of color and you're a Christian woman of color, so therefore I'm more oppressed. But then someone stands up and says, yes, but I'm a disabled Muslim woman of color. And then someone says, yes, but I'm a disabled Muslim woman of color who's a lesbian. And then someone stands up and says, yes, I too am a disabled woman of color who's a lesbian, but I'm transsexual. And what we ultimately see is the most oppressed group, when you start to go category by category by category by category, you know who the most oppressed group is? It's the individual. Once you start to look at people based on all of these categories, everyone will eventually get to the point that they're unique. And they could say, no one is alive that is exactly like me. Therefore, I'm most oppressed. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. We should view you as a unique individual, not as members of these groups. Now, does that mean that you can't take pride in being a member of these groups or advocate for members of these groups? Of course not. But having that be the central focus, it just... I'll be honest with you, your skin color is one of the least important things to me. I just don't care. It's the same as your astrological sign to me. I don't care. Same about your gender. And I'm a conservative. You might disagree with me. I don't care about your sexual preference. If you're a consenting adult, I don't care at all. At all. It doesn't matter to me. I'm the type of guy, like, look, I'm not going to act like I don't have friends that would be out drinking, wouldn't be talking crude and things like that. But me and my friends, we were never big like, oh man, did you see who I hooked up with last week? We're never impressed by that stuff, you know? So I don't really want to talk to anyone about their sexual conquest, regardless if they're straight, if they're gay, if they're trans. I really don't care. It's not interesting to me. So I don't care. Your sexual preference means nothing to me. I think there are problems, like, for example, with trans and things like that. But it's not the individual. It's just, I think that there's, I think if you would talk to someone in the trans community, I'm not trying to speak for them, but they would admit that there's some kind of biological or medical problem, right? Where they feel that they're trapped inside a body that's not their own. The question is it a physiological problem? Is it a mental problem? I tend to think it's more of a mental problem, but I'm willing to listen to evidence to the opposite. But it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, in that if you're a trans person, I don't care. I'm not going to treat you terribly. Now, I think there are issues, like using that for political power, or like saying we want to compete in certain athletics, or, you know, there should be certain legal provisions. I don't know about that type of stuff. And I'm not going to say that I think that, you know, a trans woman is a biological woman. That's clearly not scientifically accurate. But I don't begrudge that person as an individual. I don't care about these things. I care about your thoughts, who you are as a person. Are you funny? Are you smart? Are you a good leader? I don't care about these categories. But that's the irony. It's the individual that's the most oppressed, so why focus on the identity politics? But even if we do this world of, yes, but we have to look at ourselves as the groupings that we're in. The truth of the matter that no one wants to talk about is this. All of the groupings that you could focus on are both oppressed and oppressors at the same time. Because life is complicated, right? So for example, let's just do race, white and black. Are you an oppressor? Have white people been oppressors? Of course they have. Have they been oppressed? Of course. Have black people been oppressed? Of course they have. Have they been oppressors? Of course. What are some of the things you factor in? Geographically, where are you? When are you? What cultural situation are you in at the time we're talking about? So let me just give you some examples. As a white person, you might be considered dominant or the most numerous and most amongst people that look like you if you're in the United States. It's true. The data backs that up. And there are advantages that come with that. But if you go to Zaire, that won't be the case. So where you are geographically matters. What about when you are? Things were different in the 1800s than they are now, clearly. Institutions back then overwhelmingly favored white people. There were literally racist laws against Asian, Chinese, against Irish at some points, certainly against the black community. But that's different now. Now every institution is going along with the Black Lives Matter and their political message. Let's talk about specific situations. Is it true that if you're black, you may have a more negative connotation or more likely to have a negative interaction with police? I've talked about this before. I think it's more based on community and not skin color. In other words, if you're black and you're in rural Pennsylvania, your chances of having a negative interaction to the level of someone who's in inner city Chicago is almost nil. It almost doesn't exist. So it's more the location than the skin color. But fine, I'll concede based on the data, you may be more likely to have a worse interaction when it comes to the police than a white person, so that would be a negative. But what if you're in university? A black person in the university, that's considered something that universities thrive to get people of color so they can brag about how diverse they are. And you have affirmative action programs, or you have things like Harvard, for example, saying that you have to have lower test scores to be able to get in. We actually have universities such as Evergreen in 2017 and UCLA this year that are advocating that black students should have all sorts of special privileges, like the ability to not take tests and just guaranteed get A's. It is no doubt that it is more advantageous to be black and there are more privileges presented to you if you're in university than if you're Asian or white or Jewish or things like that. Now, does that mean woe is white people? Oh my goodness. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's clear, depending on the situation, that both of these, there could be examples of privilege. The same is true of male and female. Is it true that most Fortune 500 CEOs are male? Of course. Is it also true that overwhelmingly people that do jobs that are deadly are male? Yes. Is it true that women have longer lifespans? Yes. Is it true that the legal system overwhelmingly favors women? Yes. Does that mean that women that talk about issues where they feel disenfranchised don't have the right to talk about that? Absolutely not. But if we're honest about it, we can see there are examples of male privilege, there are examples of female privilege. Now you might say, yes, but is it greater in one group than the other? Possibly, but you start to see that the question's way more complicated than the identitarian politics tell you. That's how we get Black Lives Matter saying, well, we have institutional bigotry and racism. Where? What institution? The mainstream media? Would you say they're anti-Black Lives Matter? Of course not. How about Silicon Valley? Of course not. How about academia? Of course not. How about Hollywood, the entertainment industry? Nope. How about our corporations? Nope. Heck, even our politics. You might say, well, the Republicans aren't for Black Lives Matter. Could have fooled me. Listen to Lindsey Graham or Mitch McConnell. So just they say, well, the institutions used to be against us, therefore it proves institutional bias. But they ignore the fact that the institutions are now paying lip service to them right now. And in fact, one of the things you see from Black Lives Matter is they justify current racism that they engage in by pointing to racism from the past. So they'll say, it's okay for me to say that you have original sin because you're white, because of things that happened in the past. But my argument is, I'm not denying that racist things happened in the past, but how can you say that that justifies current racism? And before you say, oh, no, that's not what this is about. That's fine to say in theory, but that's not the way it's playing out in practice. Why do you think people are putting black-owned businesses up in these cities that are having riots? Why do you think that when the statue of George Washington got pulled down in Portland, they wrote white fragility and defund white people there? The racism of the past does not justify current racism. But let's talk about privilege for a minute. Do you know that just by the very nature that you're born now, that you exist now, you've basically hit the genetic lottery? No matter where you're born in the world, if you are alive right now, you are alive at the best time ever to be a human. So already you're one of the most privileged humans to ever exist. Right now, no matter where you're born. If you were born in the United States, or if you currently live in the United States, you're amongst the most privileged of the privileged in the history of the world. If you're watching me on a computer right now, and so you have that type of resource, you're amongst the most privileged of the privileged of the privileged. We're talking 1% of all people, all time. Now, the only caveat would be if you were born with a horrible, debilitating illness, I get it. Like, for example, just because you're born in the United States today, but you happen to be someone who unfortunately dies at the age of 3 of some disease, I'm not saying that person's more privileged than a serf in the 1600s. But you understand what I'm saying. That's extenuating circumstance. But we're talking relatively healthy people here. Even the poor today, by the standards of history, are incredibly rich, particularly the poor in the United States. Does this mean we shouldn't fight for the poor? Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. We could always do better. Now, all of this is true no matter what your skin color is. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. You're born in the United States, you have access to a computer. You're already amongst the most privileged that have ever existed. Again, that doesn't mean we can't fight to make things better for everyone. But what are we really talking about now, then? So let's talk about white privilege then. Let's say I concede that overall it's more privileged to be white in the United States. So we're talking about someone like me that's 99.0001 of the most privileged ever to exist, whereas a black person's 99.0000 to have ever existed privileged. That's what we're burning the country down over? That's what we're saying? This group's privileged, they have historic sin, they're immoral because of their skin color, or we need to have this big focus on? Especially when we can see there are other privileges that are far more important than skin color, such as economic privilege. But when we make it about race, we contort ourselves to these absurd arguments, like somehow the homeless white person who's a vet, who's struggling to live day to day, he's more privileged than LeBron James or Oprah Winfrey. It's insanity. And you can wax philosophical all you want about this. And don't get me wrong, the postmodernists and the identity politics people, some of them are very smart and they're very talented at being able to argue this stuff. But you have to understand that the linguistic nature of being able to speak articulately and with veracity doesn't change the fact that we all know that that's garbage. No matter how you try to spin it, a homeless vet that happens to be white is not more privileged than LeBron James. And the fact that you say we have to talk about that homeless person's privilege to the extent that it exists because of his skin color more than the wealth privilege is insane. And we all know it. We all know it. And the more you focus on that privilege, even if it's true, and you say that homeless person's still white, that's some privilege, all it does is cause contempt and anger and frustration and division that makes the bigger privilege, those in positions of power that control our country, allows that privilege to become even stronger and exist even more. Right, Freebird, your white privilege doesn't pay. I debated a nice gentleman named Vega the other day. You know, I said, let's take two people. We'll say Bill is a black person, Tom is a white person. Let's say that Tom is a white person, never went through, or we'll start with Bill. Bill is a black person. His ancestral history is his ancestors went through slavery and went through Jim Crow. And as a result of that, they never really had the chance to get ancestral wealth. And so he was born to a single mother that made $30,000 a year. Now here's Tom. Tom is a white person, didn't go through slavery or Jim Crow. But maybe his family worked at the mills, and the mills closed down in the 60s. And since then, his family's been struggling mightily, to the point where when Tom is born as a white person, he also is born in the exact same situation, to a single mother who's making $30,000 a year. How does Tom's privilege of being white, how does that help him benefit more than Bill? Why should we say, well, we need specific programs or reparations or something to benefit Bill because he's black, but that shouldn't benefit Tom? And this stuff plays out in real life. The governor of Kentucky, for example, said, I'm going to make sure that no poor person in this country goes, or in my state goes without health care. I have poor blacks. Why would you limit it to poor blacks? If you're concerned with helping the poor, you're going to say, so a white and black person who are best friends walk up, both homeless, both in a similar economic situation, and you look at the black and say, yes, we'll help you. Sorry, white person, you have privilege, goodbye. That's nonsense. If it's true that blacks are more likely to be poor, then programs to help the poor would disproportionately still benefit black people. So what's the harm in that? But when you make it about race, you allow people to co-opt the movement, like the people we see running Black Lives Matter, that are fascist communists, and cause division. And so all of a sudden they're talking about things like defund white people and white fragility. And it allows them to set up these situations where we ignore the data and we have to pretend that cops are killing unarmed black men at record paces just for racist reasons. It's not true. These things just aren't true. So this idea of privilege, again, I know it's easier said than done. And let me, to my Native American friends, who by the way prefer to be called Indian, so I'll call them Indian friends, the majority of them do. To my Indian friends or my black friends or my Irish friends or my Asian friends or my Jewish friends, whatever your ethnicity, some more than others I know could point to injustices committed by this country to certain racial groups or gender groups or, one of the big, someone who works in mental health. I'm well aware of the mistreatment of people with mental health issues in the history of this country. I'm well aware of that. Something we don't talk about a lot. In many cases, still mistreated poorly. So I understand that it's not perfect. And if we see injustices, currently, we should speak out against them. But we should not make things about race or about gender if that's not the core of the problem. And that's not the core of the problem when it comes to law enforcement. Has to do more with poverty and certain communities and the culture going behind those communities. I think things like the idea of embracing victimhood that's been pushed by the establishment Democrats and things like that. The more we focus on these sins of the past, the less we can come together. My governor, Tom Wolf, was asked by my friend Todd Bartley, who does the radio show with me on Saturdays. Todd asked him last Monday, he said, Governor Wolf, in these trying times where we see so much animosity and division, what is your message of unity for the people of Pennsylvania when we seem to be more divided than ever? And you know what Governor Tom Wolf said? He said, my message is this. There are two Pennsylvanias, one for whites and one for blacks. Does that sound like a message of unity? And that's where we get when we make it all about race. When we focus on a problem that's not the core problem, we never get to the solution. So one of the core problems in this country is that the people in positions of leadership, both culturally and politically, don't care about us, the average people. They don't care about you if you're a white liberal. They don't care about you if you're a black conservative. They don't care about you if you're working class. They don't care if you're in the inner city. They don't care if you're in rural America. They don't care if you're in the suburbs. They don't care. They just want more power for themselves, more enrichment for themselves. In both parties at the establishment level. Does that mean every Republican and every Democrat? No. But at the establishment level, that's true. That's the core problem. I've said that on this channel over and over again. I said to my friends on the left, what's your issue? If you had to pick one issue that you'd like to be solved, maybe climate change. Let's just take that hypothetically. I think that the climate change debate is ridiculous. I think that we've seen, for example, with COVID, that these experts are full of it, that this is being used to get power. Every time someone suggests dealing with policies that deal with climate change, almost without fail, it's making poor people pay the brunt of the cost. So by getting rid of things like cheap meat and cheap fossil fuels, poor people will pay the brunt of the cost. They always do. But I digress. Let's leave our disagreement aside for a minute. Let's say that's your most important issue. Well, I'm here to tell you, if we don't solve the central issue of corrupt people running our government and running our country, and your vote not mattering because you only get to vote for people that the establishment approves of, then your issue doesn't matter. You better hope that James Comey at the FBI agrees with your issue, because if not, even if you get someone elected who does, if the FBI is against them, they'll just corruptly investigate and spy on them like they did to Donald Trump. And so we could have these arguments, left versus right. I would welcome those arguments, policy disagreements. But we aren't even at that level because the system's so corrupt. And instead of dealing with that, we're focusing on this, oh, well, it's because cops are racist. That's the problem. We need to dismantle the systemic institutions of white supremacy. What are you talking about? When you make the problem something that's not the core of the problem, then there's no way to solve it. So instead of talking about things that make sense, for example, I saw on Joe Rogan's show, Jocko Willink, who I believe was a UFC fighter, at least an MMA fighter, and was also a Navy SEAL. He talks about, he thinks one of the things we could do to solve this problem, instead of defunding the police, is actually investing more in police, and that 20% of their work time should be training. And they should be every week going through new training scenarios. I suggest things like we need more community policing. We need to get rid of some of these terrible laws like the war on drugs. We need to stop using law enforcement as a mechanism for revenue or a mechanism to enforce laws that aren't really about justice, and instead make them members of the community that are encouraging to keep the community safe. By the way, that's of people of all color. But we can't get to real solutions because we're fighting this hypothetical boogeyman. Right, Black Lives Matter is racist, Freebird on DLive. But here's the thing. The idea that it's very clever. It's a clever name, like Antifa. Because they say, Black Lives Matter. Oh, if you disagree with us, then you don't care about Black lives. That's absurd. Of course I care about Black lives. And there are great people in Black Lives Matter. Don't get me wrong. But the problem is the way they're pushing policies are things that are directly counterintuitive to the black community, in my opinion. If I name my political party, All Children's Lives Are Important, and then some of my goals are like this. Yes, the All Children's Lives Are Important party, the first thing we believe is we need to bomb China. Now maybe you're like, hey, I don't want to bomb China. And then I say, oh, so you don't care about children's lives? Well, no, of course I do. I'm just saying, just because I agree with that and you happen to have named yourself that doesn't mean that I have to support you wanting to bomb China. It's the same with Black Lives Matter. They've very intuitively chosen a name And then they changed the definition around to say, oh, we're just talking about black lives. You don't think black lives matter? Oh, of course I do. Oh, well, then you have to support our movement, which says abolish the police. No. What's up, just a nameless German? Thank you so much for being here. Right, Freebird, unborn Black Lives Matter. And again, there's all sorts. Why don't we care about black lives in the womb? Why don't we care about the 7,000 black lives that were extinguished in homicides last year? Why don't we care about the deadliest shooting week or single day in Chicago in the past 60 years that occurred last week? Why don't we care that homicides have almost doubled over this period this month in New York City than the year before? All of a sudden, those lives don't seem to be worth talking about. Frizzle Fry, what's happening? Thank you, Just a Nameless German. Yeah, I'm trying to reach out to more people and get some more debates. I don't know if you're still here, Dylan, but just to give everyone an idea of my schedule, I will be streaming every Sunday night, every Monday night, every Tuesday night. Now, Wednesday nights, for those of you, I know I'd said I was going to do every Wednesday night. By the way, 10:30 Eastern Time, between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Eastern Time. 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, possibly Wednesday nights. But I actually just do this when I'm off the clock at work, and I might not be working Wednesdays anymore. So I appreciate all donations because I got a new computer. I'm trying to raise $1,200 to pay for a new computer because I spent the money, and my wife's upset because we're going to have a baby. And she feels I could have spent the money in better places. But it's very important for my channel because if you can see right here, I just use this laptop. And anyone who's watched me for a while knows if I have a guest on, most of the time I lag so bad that it's unwatchable. So it prevents me from having these debates that I want to have with people on the left or bringing on guests that agree with me or maybe that are somewhere in between, sort of agree with me on some things. So please, if you could consider donating, I would really appreciate it. And I'll put up platforms. Thank you. Thank you for those that are saying, for those that are congratulating me on being a dad. Look, I've said this before, and I'll be wrapping up here now. But let me say this. These are important issues. Look, let me throw a bone here for a minute. I really do care about black lives. I really do care about the plight of the inner city. There is something to be upset with. Everyone had the right to be upset about the murder of George Floyd, by the way. I think that if you take an honest, good faith look at the data, you'll see that not only have things been getting much better with actual deaths that come at the hands of the police, but they've been really getting much better with deaths of the police in the black community as well. So much so that it was 15 last year, unarmed blacks that were killed by police. And many of those were justifiable shootings. Tragic, all the same, but justified. So things aren't as bad as I think this is selectively being pushed by people that want to fan this division. But please don't, even if you disagree with me, don't take that as me saying, oh, I don't care about problems that occur in these communities. I do. And I think that the body of my work on this channel, you could go back and I challenge you to find anything that I've said that disagrees with that. So I really do appreciate, having voices on that disagree with me. I appreciate people that have a different perspective. But I think that that's how we solve this. I think that we have to understand that people could disagree and still be reasonable. And that we need to hear all these voices. And I know that we're talking about, I'm going to put some of my links for Patreon and stuff up here now. I don't know if I have any mods that could do this. But what I think, though, is regardless of what side of the fence you're on, you can see, I think we could all agree this is a unique time in the country. And that things could go real bad real quick. So it's weird I know I got to get subscribed, Sar Brady. If you want to donate to me and you don't want to use any of these platforms, please email me, and I'll type my email address at rob.nor@gmail.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you'd like to debate me on, I'm up for any issue. I really am. If you'd like to debate, I love debate. If you'd like to support me financially, if you'd like to ask me a question, suggest a topic, please email me at rob.nor@gmail.com. If you want to donate to me that way, I could give you my P.O. box, which obviously I don't want to give out to everyone online. But if you contact me, I could give you a P.O. Thank you, Aimless German. I appreciate it. I try to be open. But yeah, I could give you a P.O. box and you could donate that way. And I think just Nameless German on Twitch, I think that what I have that I really try to show is I try to be authentic. Who you see here is who I am off channel. It's who you see when I'm talking to my friends that happen to be wealthier and are Democrats and liberal people, or when I'm talking to my redneck friends back home and we're just drinking some Busch Lights or something on the weekend. This is who I am. So I hope that comes across. And, I'm not someone who's a sycophant for one side. I've criticized Trump. I criticize Republicans. I'll criticize the left. So I am who I am. So, thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to push too hard on the money. And that's what I do say is, I am asking for money, but please believe me, if I never get another dime, I'm still going to do this show. So the equipment might suffer, things like that, but don't feel the necessary to donate to me, particularly in times with like the coronavirus and stuff. I know I'm struggling financially and many other people will be as well. So please don't feel like you have to send me. Thank you, Rational. Don't feel like you have to send me anybody. Don't feel that way. But, anyways, just to summarize this point I was making, it's weird because I see the country divided as I ever have in my entire life. And I really do think that we're standing on the precipice of possibly allowing people to destroy the foundational aims of this country, the ideas of personal liberty and responsibility, the values outlined in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. I think it's that scary that could happen. But while I'm seeing that, I'm going to be a dad. It's the happiest time of my life. So it's a weird feeling. It really is. I think that it's appalling that we don't have leadership on the conservative side. We have very few people that are standing up. I'm going to continue to be a voice and try to push back. I do so in an authentic way, but I think it is a foundationally sound way. I think that I'm an open, caring person. I'm not coming at it from a fact of, I only care about people that look or think like me. That's not what I'm doing. But I am pushing back. I will not bow down to what I think is a mob that wants me to not be able to say certain things. Thank you, Blase. 4 diapers and a supercomputer. Ba-bing! Hey, if this guy on Twitch gave me $10,000 and that's real, then I'll be good to go. But yeah, that's where I'm at. It's a weird place. I'm going to still keep fighting. I'm going to still keep doing the channel. Trying to put out content every day. That's the other thing. I'm going to try to put out like the 2-minute videos, 2.5-minute videos almost every day. If I get enough subscribers on DLive, I can put them there. It's going to be on locals.com and it'll be on YouTube. So you can check out those little videos and hopefully share them. But yeah, the world is getting weird. It definitely is. So it's a weird time. It's a weird time to be alive. It's scary. But personally, it's the happiest I've ever been. I'm incredibly lucky to have the best family, to have the best wife. I'm just a very lucky person. I really am. So, I know people tell me all the time, why are you yelling so much? Well, one, that's just kind of how I talk. But second, even when I get mad and I'm yelling, I think people should get fired up more. But I don't carry that into my home life. I'm a very happy person. So, thank you so much to everyone who supported me. So I'll be back here tomorrow at 10:30 Eastern Time PM. So you can check that out. It could be a little later. It could be, depending on when my work thing dies down, 10:30 to 11. So I'm going to go to DLive and I'm going to give out these lemons. And then those of you that stick with me, I'm going to try to figure out Twitch and see if someone actually did donate big sums of money to me. I'm doubting it's true, but still a good joke, even if not. Oh, wait, wrong. So I'll give out the lemons here. And please, if you're not following me on DLive, I encourage you to follow me there because it seems to be a platform that's not going to censor. Also on Twitch. I haven't had any sort of censorship from Twitch. So you can follow me at Normal America on Twitch or on DLive. And on DLive, right, because it's if you donate the lemons, it's like sort of a cryptocurrency. So I get 100% of it. So just all in all, it's a good... Add 50 lemons. And then distribute the awards. And then let's see if I can figure this Twitch business. Thank you. And thank you, Just Nameless German, for following me on Twitch. I really appreciate it. Now, how do I check donations here on Twitch? Let's see. You guys are the best, though. I'm humbled. There we go. We got Phil C., Freebird, and Sneed James. Big winners tonight. So congratulations on D-Live for those that won the lemons. I'm humbled by each and every one of you. It's amazing to me. I'm not a special person, right? I'm just a regular person. That's why I do this. That's the people that I care about. I care about everyone, but just regular people. And it's humbling to me that people want to hear my opinion on this stuff. So really, I appreciate each and every one of you. Look, I want to grow as a channel, and one of the reasons I want to grow is because I'm conceited and a jerk, and I'd like to be popular. Heck, I'd like to make this a career. Well, except I'm going to win this congressional seat in 2020. At least I'm going to try, or 2022. But I would love to make this a career. I'd love to be doing this full time so I could put more time into it. Maybe someday I'll get enough followers that I'll get money to do that. But that's not what it's about. I wouldn't care if I'm here speaking to one person. It really means the world to me. And it's something where I could talk and say things that I believe, and I can have people constructively criticize or agree with me, and it means a lot to me. And it's just nice to know that there are people out there that are interested in having these conversations, even if they disagree. And I'm incredibly humbled by that, to be part of this. And, it's amazing what technology allows us to do. I can't see being able to do this, 10, 15 years ago even. So thank you all so much. If I did get $10,000 donated to me, I'm assuming I'll put a video up tonight that says, thanks for the $10,000. But I guess that's probably not the case. So feel free to email me anytime. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Sneak James. American Joe's great. It's sad that he, through circumstances had to end his channel. But yeah, he's still a great person, a great American. So thank you all so much. I'll be heading out for this evening, but you can catch me right back here, 10:30 tomorrow night. Or it could be 10:30 to 11, so don't get too upset at me if it reaches out to 11. But I'll probably be putting up some smaller videos tomorrow, so 2-minute videos you can find on YouTube. So thank you so much, everyone who donated and everyone who watched. I really appreciate it. As always, have a good one.